Do you know anything about these cooling breaths? I know there's one where you kind of suck through the tongue. So maybe let's start there. How can we use the breath to cool down?
Yeah, absolutely. So, breath work, like how you eat, ought to be seasonal. As we shift through variation in temperature and qualities of the atmosphere, our breath can really be on our side or it can work against us to balance us, keep us in equilibrium. Ayurveda would use the word harmony. So, when it's hot out, intuitively, it's not the time for big, fast, heavy breathing because breathing like that, there's more movement involved, more exchange of air. They are warming techniques. Hyperventilatory techniques are heating generally for the body. So techniques like Bastrika, a bellows breath, Kapalabhati, skull shining breath, the Wim Hof method in most places in the northern hemisphere are going to be bigger breathing techniques that can overheat the system pretty easily unless they're done, very early in the morning. Actually, um, ancient yogic Ayurvedic texts would say the best time to be doing your breath work is before sunrise, when the air is cleanest, when the cool air can really support those more robust techniques. Although I imagine most people aren't going to be waking up before the sunrise to do their breath work every single day. So, what do you do about it? It's a time of year when we want to start introducing slower, lighter techniques that keep us grounded and keep us cool. So, if summer is kind of ruled by the fire element, longest days of the year, sun shining for most of the 24-hour cycle, we want to introduce breath that would be more of the lunar varieties, cooling, grounding, earthy breaths. So it's a time to just keep it very simple with cadence breathing. Now, when we get into cadence breathing, of course, you can set a time for yourself, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Doesn't really matter so much as long as it's slow. What does matter will be the tempering of the volume. You can breathe in for 5 seconds and have it be like this, or it can be absolutely silent. And during these warmer months, we want to keep it really steady with that volume of breath, lighter breath, just so there's not too much turbulence to heat us up. You mentioned the Sitali breath, Sitali pranayam, which is a technique, one of very few techniques that are done through the mouth. Uh, it's involving curling the tongue, right? That's kind of a genetic capability. So some people can't curl the tongue. So there are two sort of varietals for this one, which will be a cooling breath. And that's because when you're bringing the air in through the sides and the air is hitting the sides of the tongue, coming in through the mouth, it produces a cooling feeling. So if you can curl your tongue, you can try that. And when you exhale, you actually press the tongue up to the roof of the mouth to sort of send that cool air up to the brain and breathe out up the nose. Yeah. If you can't curl your tongue, you take the teeth together, tongue to the back of the teeth just slightly, and you would bring the breath in through the teeth, slightly pursing the lips. And then same thing, tongue to the roof of the mouth, get that cool air up to the brain, and breathe out of the nose. Um, I'm very much in the school of nasal breathing is the way to go almost always. So if you're at rest and wanting to do breathing techniques, most of the time I'm going to be recommending you breathe through the nose. However, that technique in particular is quite cooling and it would be an exception to that general rule. Another big one to demystify would be the ujjayi pranayam, or the ocean sounding breath, or the victorious breath. Is very, very common in yoga classes. And so really what you're doing in the ujjayi breath is narrowing the airway at the back of the throat. So you're adding some texture, adding some friction to the flow of air. That friction you're creating is warming. So it's a heating breath. It's not really optimal for summer, late summer. It's better for spring when it's still cold, earlier spring. Good for fall and winter, the texture is also going to lend to a grounding quality. So when it's windier in the fall and winter, it can be a very grounding breath. So I would say also, ditch the ujjayi or go very, very, very light with it in the summertime.
Very cool. Now, we may not know the answer to this, but I would just be curious to get your thoughts. What was the first breath called? The curling tongue breath? Satali. So that's a lovely name, by the way. So do you know of any evidence that it's cooling, and what is it cooling? Because I often hear these things and they're rooted in so much ancient history, aren't they? These pranayamas. And so I'm wondering if it gives us a sense of being cool, or I'm wondering if anyone's ever measured it and go, look, your body temperature dropped by 0.0 so and so when you did that exercise. So do you know of that, or what are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, so I'm not going to be able to pull a randomized control trial out of my hat. I'm not sure if any have actually been done. What I will say is definitely in terms of sensationally, you'll feel the cool air hitting the warm tongue, or the cool air hitting the warm teeth, gums, if you can't curl your tongue. And so that contrast is going to lend to the sensation of coolness. Also, again, it's meant to be a slow technique. It's not right. So, slowing down the breath is going to help regulate temperature in general. It's going to help dilate blood vessels, uh, keep things flowing and smooth. I would say that it's kind of both intuitive and counterintuitive. When your body's really hot, your internal core temperature, body temperature, is going to cool down slightly. When you're very cold, your internal temperature is going to warm up slightly. So, that's why they say sleep in a cold room, or take a cold shower, or take a warm shower before bed, because that is going to help make the body feel warm, feel cozy. Uh, so if you're out very, very, very hot in the middle of the day, automatically your body, your smart, intelligent, beautiful body, is going to be doing some temperature regulation for you. Um, this Sitali pranayama is just going to help aid in that sensation, slow you down, give yourself a moment of pause. Cannot speak directly physiologically to a study that might have been done.
Cool. Well, if anybody's watching, I'd love to know, because I always find, like, is it sensational, or is it, something else? But anyway, very, very cool. You mentioned ujjayi. I only noticed this recently, and it probably is a different breath, but I noticed that I can contract my throat and make the ujjayi. But I also noticed I can contract behind my nose, and that also makes a very similar sound, but it's much higher. Would that all be considered ujjayi, or is there maybe a different pranayama name for contraction of the nasal passage area to make a similar ocean sound?
So no matter what, in any pranayama, especially when it comes to the more warming ones like ujjayi, really there shouldn't be any sensation of force. So whether you're feeling more of the constriction at the back of the upper airway or more in the throat, it's very, very gentle. Like, the sound of the ocean you're making should not be for others to hear. It's a very personal, intimate breath. So first things first, it should never be forced. And really what you're constricting is you're narrowing the vocal flaps, the epiglottis. So physiologically, there is a correct place to be narrowing. It's at the vocal flaps. Um, I would say if you're feeling it more in the face, really try relaxing the face. If you're feeling it very dominantly in the throat, try relaxing the throat. And really, a good analogy would be to imagine you have a little, compact mirror or something, and those same muscles you'd use to fog up the mirror are the muscles that are constricting, or not the muscles, the place in the back of the throat that's constricting to create that sound. You're just doing it through the nose. So it's the same uh, constriction. You just want to be breathing nasally. So there is an actual place that you're narrowing. Um, and, to quote the great um, Iyengar, he was speaking of yoga asana, the physical yoga practice, when he said this: a pose should be felt everywhere and nowhere in particular, right? So a lot of times ujjayi is guided during physical asana, And so if the sensation of the ujjayi, the constriction, is taking over the whole experience, it's too much. It's too much constriction. Really, it should be an aid and focus, but it shouldn't take you so far out of everything else that's going on in the body that you start to create too much heat, too much tension, too much friction, because that resistance can start to tip into forcefulness. And again, um, really, we never want to be forcing the breath, even in bigger techniques. It should be more of a flow state than a forceful practice.
Yeah, I love that. Nice and gentle. I was playing with humming, and so I was just noticing, the hum can move quite high up in the face, or it can move quite low into the throat. And then it was the same thing with the ujjayi. It was just more of an accident, really. I was just playing with how I could move that around, but I noticed then that I actually had this conscious control of actually locking the back of the nose, which I thought was quite cool. So you would consider that whole thing ujjayi, whether you chose the nose or chose the throat, so there's not like a different name for like an ujjayi of the nose, as far as you're aware.
There very well could be. I'm not sure, to be honest. But what you're saying, with the humming, with the placement where you feel the creation of friction, it's no different than intonations in our voice or the tone of how we're singing, right? We have that ability to control speaking very high or speaking very low. And speech is very much riding on the breath. They're not all that different. When you talk for so many, so many, so many minutes after you see somebody do it, they're going to be like, they're going to take a big breath in because they've just been talking, 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 talking. It's one big exhale. So, speech, how you play with your vocal range is intimately correlated with the breath. And it's why singers, opera singers in particular, are fastidious breath trainers. And they have to be, not only for the respiratory muscle control, but for the chemistry, for everything else that's involved in creating music with your most important instrument in your body.
Mm. Yeah, I actually would love to interview an opera singer. I think that'd be quite a cool one to actually understand what they're doing.
I have one for you.
Oh, amazing! Oh, let's sort that out afterwards. That'd be really cool. Okay, yeah. So I was going to ask you about three-part breath, because I don't really get to speak to many people that are yoga instructors and breathwork instructors. So I think you offer this beautiful blend of coming from both worlds and having this lovely kind of golden zone in the middle where you can pull from both. So three-part breath, as far as I understand it, is you kind of start with the belly, and then you take the second breath in, and third breath's a bit higher. And the question really is around the dysfunction of shoulder placement. So when you see some people that have got tight rib cage and maybe a weaker diaphragm, and they're engaging shoulders, when they then try to do this breath, for example, the shoulders are shooting right up. And so I was just curious to get your thoughts on, is that okay with a three-part breath, or should we try and fix that function first and be functional with our breath and our mechanics before we attempt something like a three-part breath? Just going to pause the podcast for a second. I'm super excited to share that our 7-day breathwork reset program, or burnout reset program, is for a limited time completely free. I've been running this course for about a year. We've had amazing results, and it's designed for you if you are tired and exhausted and you've got no time. So the less time, the better. It's only 7 minutes a day, this course, and it's a 7-day program, and it's designed to build habits, healthy, sustainable habits using the breath. And so I wanted to make it accessible to you for a period of time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this podcast. So the link's down below. It's a professionally edited and put together course. It's all held in a lovely place, and you get to keep it for life as well. So grab the link below, and my suggestion is this: if you're going to do it, then do it. Don't put it off. Don't grab the link and think, I'll do that next week. It's only 7 minutes. So I would get the link, and then after this podcast, after you finish watching it, get signed up, get enrolled, and just do the exercises that I send you each and every day and have fun with it. And I promise you, at the end of the 7 days, you'll be a different person to who you are watching this video right now. So the link's down below. It's only free for a limited time. It's usually about $77 to $97. We play with the price a little bit, but I wanted to give you a little gift. So link's down there, grab it, and let's get back on with the show. Cheers.
That's a great question. And I think the answer, which I'll explain, is you can train both at the same time. So the 3-part breath, also known as Dirga pranayam, is one of the foundational techniques any person is going to learn at their 200-hour yoga teacher training, alongside with Ujjayi and Kapalabhati. It's one of the most widely taught, practiced pranayams. And as you mentioned, the complete breath, the 3-part breath, involves breathing through the nose, first filling the realm of the belly, then consciously controlling breath filling the ribs, and then consciously controlling filling more in the upper chest. Now, it's important to remember that every breath actually is a diaphragmatic breath. There's no way we can bring air into the lungs without a contraction of the diaphragm. So when we refer to diaphragmatic breathing, it's a bit of a misnomer because your accessory breathing muscles aren't working in isolation to the diaphragm. Now, of course, we can improve the function of the diaphragm. We can improve the mobility of the rib cage and the thoracic spine to create more pliancy in the thorax so that the diaphragm has more space and ease to contract to its full domain. When it comes to the 3-part breath, as you mentioned, we're purposefully breathing up a little bit higher. Like, I like to think of it like filling a can of paint from the bottom to the top. And people who practice this breath will notice that the air is manipulating the feeling of the breath most dominantly in the torso. So what I mean by that is when you're first asked to breathe into the belly, which is really just the diaphragm just contracting, which will aid in that natural movement of the belly, but we can direct it more acutely with our mind. When we first breathe into the belly, we feel sort of that protrusion. Now, it's important not to force that. We can move the belly without breathing, but we want to let it be a natural filling to that place. The second part, when you start to fill the rib basket, which is a word I like more than rib cage for obvious reasons, that sort of bucket handle like movement, to quote Leslie Kaminoff, this outward and slightly upward movement of the lower side ribs is going to naturally cause the belly to hollow in a little bit. So belly, ribs, you would have to really be forcing the belly to stay out to get both movements. So you're going to feel that natural filling side to side, a little bit of movement of the belly button back towards the front of the spine. Now, when we come up to fill the last tier in this like zone 2 of breathing up here, as you alluded to, the more functional biomechanics would involve just an extension of that bucket handle pattern, more like out and slightly up, a broadening instead of a bicycle pump breath, the lift of the shoulders like earrings hanging off of the lobes, right? And again, even if people are experiencing this lift of the shoulders, lift of the scapula, that is still a diaphragmatic breath. People are still breathing with the diaphragm. They're just over recruiting these accessory muscles in the upper back, chest, and neck. It's important to remember that these muscles up here, upper back, chest, and neck, were not designed principally for respiration. They aid in respiration, especially when we're working at more maximal loads. Think like the end of a sprint and you're really gunning for it and you need absolutely as much shape change in the torso as possible to get as much air in as possible. But these muscles are really designed for articulating the arms, the head, and the neck. So this has to do with the origin and insertion of the muscle, origin being like the root, the stabilizer, the insertion being the more mobile end of the muscle. And so when we use these muscles up here to breathe, and for the people just listening to this would be a good time to go on YouTube and watch what I'm doing. We have to change the origin and insertion, natural origin and insertion of the muscles. So now The stabilizers have to be more at these distal ends, and the insertions of the muscles have to be the ones closest to the rib cage. So it's an inefficient use of what these muscles do much better naturally, which is, again, articulate your limbs, your upper limbs, your head, and your neck. So back to the 3-part breath. This is when tactile feedback, using the hands on the body, is going to be your best friend. Most people will have an easier time practicing breathing into the belly with their hands actually having contact there. So I like to stack my hands, and when I'm leading this breath, I do it piecemeal. I say, okay, let's first put the hands near the low belly at the belly button. Let's practice just naturally feeling that ebb and flow. So I'm not telling people to protrude the belly. I'm not telling people to puff out their belly button. I'm just saying, let's feel for that, because people have to start to connect the mind to the muscle, and not everybody has that natural interoception just to start feeling that in their own body. The hands are some of the most um, sensitive places in the whole body. Like if you look at the homuncular man, his feet, his hands, his face are huge because we have so much input through these. So put your hands on your belly. Same thing with the ribs. Take your hands, you frame the lower ribs. Hold on to those bucket handles. You're basically creating a buteyko belt with your hands, applying a little bit of pressure so you start to get that feeling of the ribs moving out and slightly up, right? Creating that intra-abdominal pressure, which is a spinal stabilizer. And then finally, it's the same thing up here. I tell people to take their hands either to the upper chest or thumbs actually back in the armpits, fingertips connected at the top of the breastbone. And when they practice doing that 3-part breath, belly, ribs, chest, the fingertips should move away from one another. Right? And so they can start to feel that tactile expression. Another way to do this would be to put a resistance band or a yoga strap around sort of the middle of the chest there. And so they can start to really feel the difference between the lateral expansion of the upper ribs and this inefficient movement of the shoulders up towards the ears. So very long-winded way of answering your question. Break it down. The 3-part breath, you can build to it, practice in the building to it, and practice while doing it, because the best way to learn how to breathe functionally is to practice breathing functionally.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love what you said there about connecting the mind to the muscle. That's fantastic. So with a lot of sports and movement practices, what I've come to realize is, I don't know if this is a good analogy, target practice. We don't use guns over here, but I heard this thing.
Well, we do, so
Well,
it's
you guys
okay.
do. But I was reading a Jack Reacher book ages ago, and he was talking about like how these people were really good at like standing and shooting at a target. And then, but in the real world scenario of having to like actually aim at somebody, it's very, very different. So, could you walk us through, not shooting, but doing a breathing practice seated with you now, and getting into the real world and being distracted and busy? Like, how can we take what we learn in a seated, lovely yoga practice, but actually translate it into real world environments when I'm moving and sprinting and walking and lifting shopping bags and all that good stuff? What's the gap or the bridge there that we can consider?
Yeah, that's a great question, because of course, when we, set up these precious conditions in the yoga studio or on our meditation cushion and remove the distractions, it's a lovely thing. For most people, that's not what their day-to-day looks like, and not when actually they'd be benefiting the most from a breathwork practice or a breath training practice. So there are, a few different ways you could go about this. Something I think that is important to remember is that it's a lot easier for an emotion to control a thought than for a thought to control an emotion. So it's very easy for us to become stimulated by an external input and have it take us off our track, right? Like I could be breathing so calmly, so nicely, I'm in my peaceful state, and then I get a stress phone call, I get a stressful email, whatever the stimulus is, it throws me off my track. My emotions then start to control how I'm thinking. How I'm thinking is going to start to control how I'm breathing. It's a whole spiral. Okay. Harder for me to just say, okay, Tyre, calm down. Okay, be calm. Okay, feel XYZ when my body is clearly upregulated. So, you know that saying, like, when's the best time to plant a tree? Like 100 years ago. So it's partially that, right? Like we train our breath so that in day to day situations that bring stress to us, we have a baseline conditioning to keep calm, right? It's why we train the Bolt score, why we train our CO2 tolerance. So our ventilatory response is not as quick to stressful stimuli. But part of it for me is having external reminders around me. So, no, I'm not going to have my meditation cushion in my corporate corner office because any investor or any, board member walking in there is going to be like, what the hell is that? Even in 2025. I can, however, have a sticky note on my computer screen or next to my keyboard that says breathe slow. I can send reminders to my phone 3 times a day that say, take a breath, right? So part of it is just having external reminders because, again, like these external things are going to help to influence our emotions, to help influence our thinking. So if the external thing is also a reminder to breathe slow, that can be super helpful. Now, you're going to be in the world and you're going to have something stressful happen and you're not going to have that sticky note. You're not going to have that text coming through. You're going to forget all of the work you've done into your breath training. So what do? Well, personally, I think it's very, very important to remember that breathing happens in the body. All life happens in the body. Your mind may not be present. It can be anxious thinking about the future. It can be depressed thinking about the past. But your body and your breath are always in the present moment. So what I train people to do is feel their feet on the ground. Feel their seat on the seat if they're sitting. Create a physical connection to your body, to the ground. That's number one. Get grounded. Because it's like you can't make toast if you don't plug the toaster in. You're not going to pull current up through the body to change your state if you're not plugged in, right? It's true for how you sit. It's true for every yoga asana, every yoga posture. You need to be plugged in. So practice feeling your feet on the ground. Sounds so simple. Changes the whole state of the body just to feel grounded. From there, it's pretty natural to notice the breath. So if you can remember to feel your feet on the ground and just literally notice your breath, when you notice the breath, studies show you're breathing about 20% slower on average. You don't need to start employing fancy breathwork techniques in the moment. One, someone's going to notice and be like, what are you doing? Are you even paying attention to me? Two, probably not going to remember to do that. It's a lot easier to remember just to notice your breath. So feet on the floor, notice your breathing. It will slow down. You will get more connected to the present moment. Best decisions are made when you're right here, right now, not thinking in the future, not thinking in the past. So easier said than done, but those 2 simple things would be
Nice.
my practice.
Cool. So I would love to get your thoughts on, and I know I've not prepared you for this talk, so because I don't know where we're going to go with this one, so this would be quite cool. What is the benefits or disadvantages of yoga practice plus a chiropractic practice? I don't know if you ever go for adjustments or do any work there. And the reason I'm asking this is I've been very interested in, I've had a few adjustments done, but I've just noticed recently, I've been following a guy called McLaughlin Chiropractors, big in the US, millions of views. And he's very, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but they're doing a lot of stuff with the muscles. And people that have been spending years trying to stretch and do different things, they'll go to this guy and he's working the knots out of them and he's kind of scraping the muscles and getting the inflammation to come forward and stuff. So I guess there's a couple of parts to this question. One is, do you need to go through a chiropractor? Can you, is fix the right word, can you reset your body with a yoga practice? Is chiropractor beneficial or would you stay away from it? So yeah, just give us your thoughts on some of that.
super loaded question. I feel like chiropractic care is a very polarizing thing. Personally, I am very much a fan. I go every 2 weeks to get an adjustment. Um, I've been very fortunate to work with chiropractors who are incredibly knowledgeable, very actually old school, not trying to s- go out of their lane and recommend supplements and blah, 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 blah. Like they are just experts on your musculoskeletal system. And every time I go, I literally feel 2 inches taller. So, personal feeling is I'm a big fan. But to answer your question, like how does a chiropractic adjustment and a yoga practice either butt heads or mesh? I would say that all yoga is therapeutic when done correctly. And that's a big tenet of my company, Better Yoga. It was founded by me and a yoga therapist. Her name is Kari Herendorf. And the yoga we believe in teaching is therapeutic because we're teaching people to properly align and find space in the body, work with the natural rhythms and biomotion of the body instead of just trying to achieve pretzel like shapes to photograph them on Instagram. So I'm going to repeat it just because it's worth remembering. All yoga is therapeutic when done correctly. So if you are having a daily yoga practice that prioritizes proper alignment, centration of the joints, you're going to be in pretty good shape because really, um, like I said before, life is lived in the body, and everything you do off the mat is going to translate into how you show up on the yoga mat. If you lean on your left butt cheek every time you watch Netflix, that's going to show up in your down dog. That's going to show up in your pigeon pose, right? So you can't isolate how you're living your life and how you're moving your body in any movement practice, especially yoga. Um, so that's that. Now, there are some let me use a metaphor. If you're a homeowner or a condo owner, apartment owner, whatever, there are some things you can do DIY by yourself. There are some things you can repair and improve on your own. There are other projects you need professional help with. And that line is really for the homeowner to decide, but I think about it like having a therapeutic yoga practice daily is like cleaning the floors, taking out the trash, unclogging the toilets, like everything you should be doing to clean your house that, you know, you can do. Sometimes something breaks. Sometimes there's something you cannot fix or clean on your own. And that would be the time to go see, in my opinion, a chiropractor who can kind of help realign, restructure the house. They're working largely with bones, the skeletal system. Bones are the structure of the body, the house of your body. And again, I think it's really important to be picky about your chiropractor. Like, go interview them, go talk to them, ask about their approach. You know, um, don't just go to a random person you found on the internet, never knowing anything about them. Um, yeah, so that would be my stance on that. Again, I'm not a doctor. You've got to do what's right for you. I'm not saying everybody should go to a chiropractor. I will say I've received incredible benefit. And as a testimonial to my chiropractor, shout out Mark Rudin, he literally has helped me grow a half inch in height. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually a lot. So, yeah, I used to be 5'5". Now I'm 5'5.5".
Incredible. So I would be curious, you don't have to go here if we don't want to, but what as a fit yoga instructor, is it that is it just the demands of the modern world that you go and get undone there by sitting in chairs and all that stuff? Is it something from the past? Like, I'm just curious as to, like, because I'm thinking that I probably need to go back to the chiropractor, and they're in way better shape than me and way more bendy than I am. So what is it that draws you there with the practice you've currently got?
So, just to start, you say I'm more bendy than you. Remember that we need to be strong and we need to be flexible. It's not one without the other. Being too flexible, oh, sorry, there's a bit of thunder. Being too flexible can cause injury. Being too strong and inflexible can cause injury. I am a yoga instructor. I am also an entrepreneur and business owner. So, yes, I spend several hours a day teaching yoga, working with clients, doing my home practice. I also spend probably more hours a day on the computer at my desk. So, for me, I go to a chiropractor because the reality of, as I sure I don't have to tell you, owning your own business means you're wearing a lot of hats. You're spending a lot of time on the computer, doing the books, doing the marketing, this, that, and the other. So I do it as a little extra way to take care of my spine, my pelvis, all my joints and that kind of thing. And to be honest, I'm just like addicted to feeling naturally good. So I love going. It's like, you know, I'm sure what other people get, like going out for ice cream, like me going to the chiropractor is really delicious.
Yeah. Oh, you're making me want to go back. I think that's what I'm going to do after we finish this, is go and look for a local chiropractor. So as a desk worker and an entrepreneur, I'm sure there's loads of desk workers watching this right now, or truck drivers, anybody that's seated. Can you give us some of your tips or hacks, or what are you doing in your space to keep yourself mobile?
Yeah. So I'll say truck driving will definitely be different than desk dwelling because you can get up from your desk. You can't just leave the truck. So I'm gonna focus on the desk workers first. Um, in Better Yoga, my company, we have a saying: the best pose is just the next pose. So if you've been sitting for an hour, stand up. It doesn't have to be that complicated. But really, you know, our bodies are very old. Chairs are very new. So, how many hundreds of thousands of years have humans been around? And how many, only tens of thousands of years, maybe even less than that, 5,000 years, have chairs been around? So, chairs are very new for our ergonomic landscape, so to speak. And what sitting does is it causes us to underutilize our legs, disrupt the natural stacking of the pelvis, the rib basket, the cranium, and put a lot of compression and pressure on the spine, especially for people who are not sitting well. You can't see, but I sit on a stool. My chair doesn't have a back because it forces me to sit upright. So I'm a very big fan of stools. Um, but you asked, what can people do? So there's the sort of classic 30 for 30 rule. Every 30 minutes of sitting, set a timer, take 30 seconds just to stand up at the very least. If you think about what sitting does to the front line of the body, we have the fold at the front of the hips. For most people, it's actually less of a fold and more of a dumping into the lower back. But either way, standing up is going to unfold the front of the pelvis, going to iron out the length of the spine. Anybody who's been sitting for a long period of time, it's going to impact the structure and function of the hip flexors. One of the most popularly talked about ones would be the psoas, the iliopsoas. These muscles connect the upper body to the lower body. They play a huge role in breathing. They play a huge role in how we walk, run. They are intrinsically connected to the nervous system because fight or flight, focusing on that last one, flight, what is that? That's running. Hip flexors majorly need to be strong for runners. But what happens when we sit is they can be shortened and they can be weakened. right? So a lot of people will actually just go, oh, I need to stretch my hip flexors. Well, sometimes the best thing to do is to actually just balance them by slackening the hip flexors, and we can get into that later. But if you've been sitting a lot, stand up and just think about balancing the structure of the body. Have your hips over your feet. Have your shoulders over your hips. Have your ears over your shoulders. Just stand in an aligned way, and you can already start to undo so much of sitting. Now, a big thing I also like to do is simply just taking the arms overhead in external rotation. So, if you think about the typical desk dweller, spine is in flexion, so that's rounding of the back. Shoulders are in internal rotation. It's sort of that like bulldog posture, right? The tech neck posture. So the opposite would be bringing the arms overhead. I like to make my hands in cups because it helps spin the pinky fingers forward, brings the armpits forward. And remember, when your arms are overhead, you're not trying to jam the shoulder blades down your back. Let them naturally elevate, lengthen the neck. And even just sitting like this with your arms up for 30 seconds, not only is it going to undo a lot of that compression, but what are you doing? You're bringing the lungs forward. Breath should flow in and out more easily. Yeah, so you can think about an equilateral triangle between the center of the heart and the center of each palm, and you're holding your hands like cups so that, if anything auspicious comes down from the sky, you're there to catch it. That's how I like to think about it. And even that can just totally change not only what's going on in the body, but therefore what's going on in the mind. So stand up frequently, open up the shoulders, take a walk, just do something different. Like, it doesn't have to be a specific stretching protocol. Like, your body just wants to be balanced. So do something different. For truckers, you're on the clock. So I would recommend like getting a Pilates ball, putting it behind your lower back so you're at least sitting well in your truck. Do not do any breath work when you're driving or operating any kind of vehicle.
Yep, good advice. Very good advice. So we may have touched on this last time, but I'd love to get some information from you on the hamstrings, and in particular, I've noticed through this journey, mine are incredibly tight. And I've tried loads of, I've tried things. I even have one of my PTs that comes here. He'll stretch me out. He'll get my leg up in the air, and he'll keep going back, and I'll be doing the exhales, and it'll feel great for a bit. But then they're back to being tight again. And so I always wonder, like, when it comes to like, say, like something like a tight hamstring or tight shoulders, like what's the science or the logic of fixing that? Because I feel like you can stretch it and you'll get a little something, and maybe even stretching every day. But like, what are you stretching? You're stretching is it the muscles, ligaments? What's going on? So could you just walk us through, like, if somebody is very, very tight in an area, what could they do, and what's going on in the body?
Yeah. So let's focus just on the hamstrings because depending on the muscle group, how it's tight, the remedy might be different, especially because all bodies are a bit unique. But in general, let's talk about hamstrings. So tight hamstrings often correlates to tight chest. Think about it. It is the computer posture. Your knee is in flexion, your shoulders are rounded. Those areas can correlate. Now, Chinese medicine, funny enough, would say that the hamstrings are the lungs of the legs. The lungs of the legs. Anatomically, the back, what we perceive as the back of the leg, is actually the front of the leg. So any place in the body that's like a hard shell, it's the back. Any place that's the soft, juicy, vulnerable bits, that's the front. So the hamstrings are actually anatomically the front of the leg. If you think about like the baby in the womb, like their legs are externally rotated, the hamstrings are nearly facing up. So hamstring, quote unquote, stretching can go wrong so easily because people are chasing the sensation of a stretch and not understanding what part of the muscle actually wants and needs to be lengthened. So a classic thing for people to do will be to do a forward fold where they bend themselves in half and try to touch their toes. I hear this all the time. It's a meme. I can't do yoga because I can't touch my toes. Well, have you ever heard of bending your knees? It's literally the only job they know how to do. One of my teachers Abby Galvin, she always says that knees are God's mistake, because there's so much that can go wrong. But knees bend very well. So if you want to touch your toes, bend your knees. And so when people go to stretch the hamstrings, they're often jamming the back of the knee back, or they're really overstretching the hamstring attachments up near your butt, up near your glutes. And both of those places are not the part of the muscle, the ligaments, that want to be stretched. We want to be stretching if the goal is to be lengthening and the goal is to be stretching, which is not always the case. But if that is the goal, we want to be stretching the belly of the muscle, the fat, juicy part of the muscle. And really the best way to open up anything in the middle is to think about the distal ends moving further apart. So instead of jamming at the back of the knee in a forward fold, you would think about shifting your weight a little bit towards the balls of your feet, plugging them in, and lifting your seat a little bit higher in the air. The caveat being, can you keep your knees bent? Can you keep your torso connected to your thigh? So maybe it's best if I demonstrate this one. Here, let me just move this back. I don't know how I'm going to do this with my microphone. We'll figure it out. All right. So I'm going to physically demonstrate. I'm not sure how much the microphone will pick up. Most people, you can hear me? Okay. Most people, I'm going to try to pretend I'm not flexible. Most people do this. I can't touch my toes. What's happening here is you're putting the entire onus of this quote unquote stretch in the back. This is the same thing as this. So you're not actually helping anything, not undoing anything. So instead, what I said is, when you can't touch your toes, bend your knees. When you connect the torso to the thigh, you're playing on the natural intelligent geometry of the body. The length of your thigh is the length of your torso. Your knees are designed to fit in your armpits. For some of you trying this out for the first time, it'll literally feel like you're in a squat because you might have tight hamstrings. So what I said is, shift forward to the ball of the foot. This is the lung of the foot. It's the bouncy, juicy, resilient part of the foot. Hanging back in the heel is like trying to drive with a parking brake on. It's not going to work. So you shift a little bit towards the ball of the foot. Drop your head. The weight of my torso is on my thighs, so I'm not using my back to hold me up. I'm using my legs, okay? And then from the plug of the ball of my foot, I lift my seat. And so it doesn't have to be this. Again, bonus in the back. No, it's just lifting up from the tail to open up here. So I'm not jamming and overstretching and opening up the belly of the muscle, staying connected. Everything is still in my legs, so it's functional. My legs are getting strengthened. They're turning on, especially after sitting, maybe not letting them work. My head is dropping. My elbows are heavy. My neck is not overworking at all. And I just think about the polarity, ball of the foot to the bite bone. That's automatically going to open up the belly of the muscle, right? So that's one thing. Come back here. Probably going to be very red in the face. Okay. The next thing is, you said, so I go, I stretch out, then I come back and I'm still tight. If you're only stretching, going to yoga, blah, 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 once, a couple times a week, and that's it, of course you're going to be tight, because the other 50 hours of the week, you're still like this, right? So this comes back to that earlier advice. Set a timer for 30 minutes or an hour on your phone. When that goes off, stand up. Do something different. You're already lengthening the hamstrings just by standing up, from going from this to this, right? So people who think stretching as an isolated thing in their day is going to help, like, yeah, it might help a little, but really we need to be thinking about functional movement, functional breathing in the other 23 hours of the day, right? So how you breathe is how you live your life. How you move is how you live your life. Most of us aren't moving very much. Hamstrings are tight, chest is tight, lungs are concave and collapsed, breathing is dysfunctional, things are literally looking down all the time. You want things to look up? You need to open up. Get a standing desk, elevate your computer. Just stand up. Just stand up. It's what you're designed to do. We weren't actually designed to sit. It's very easy, but we weren't designed to do that. And if you're going to sit and you need to sit, sit well. If your chair has a back, get one of those like squishy Pilates balls or a yoga block. Put it behind you. Change the ergonomics of your work setup. Because where you spend your time is going to inform what your body can do. And if your environment is not set up for functional breathing, functional movement, yeah, you can go stretch for 30 minutes in your 5-day work week. Most people are going to overstretch and maybe tear something instead of just incorporating it into their day. So I'm a really big fan of that. Like, I don't think things need to be all or nothing. I think progress is very much about day in, day out, changing your habits, just doing little things. So that's my stance.
Very cool. So I think let's just weave into habits, because I think this is, and you've already given us a few really wonderful tips about, setting alarms and messages that can come in. But if we could go a bit deeper on habits, because I think, in the work I do as well, I'm working with a lot of clients, and, very often we'll know most of what we're meant to be doing. We just don't do it. And so for me, it comes down to two main things. I'm sure there's more, but these are the two that I'm thinking of right now. It's how do we embed habits, but also how do we deal with our feelings? And what I mean by this is sometimes we'll feel like we don't want to do something. And sometimes that feeling comes from the right place, which is maybe I'm exhausted, or maybe it comes from a different place, which is I can't be bothered today. Maybe because I've been sitting all day, suddenly I'm very lethargic here, and actually my body wants to move, but there's a part of my brain that doesn't. And so I would love to explore with you a little bit how we can acknowledge the feeling, body, mind, self, whatever that is, but also have some sort of habit stack in place. Because clearly you are very dedicated to what you do. This is a practice that you've embedded. So what wisdom can you give us that maybe aren't moving as much or are as flexible? How can we start to build those things, the habits, and acknowledging but pushing past the feelings sometimes? Because I don't want to say ignore the feelings, because I feel we've done a really good job of disassociating from our feeling body anyway. So this is quite a nuanced one for me, because it's like I want to acknowledge the feelings are there, but I also want to go, I recognize that that's not a helpful feeling right now, and I'm going to choose to do something different, even though my body's saying watch Netflix and eat popcorn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about first how do you embed a habit? So baseline, your desire to change has to be greater than your desire to stay the same. Everybody's going to have some sort of stimulus or tipping point that leads them to change a behavior. Okay? It's easiest to change a behavior when the thing you're opting to do instead is fun, easy, or popular. So I have a degree in public health. Every health communications course I've ever taken, how do you get somebody to change a behavior, especially in the realm of health and well-being, needs to be fun, easy, and or popular. Okay, so the thing you're trying to implement, how do you make it more fun? How do you remove resistance from the activity? How do you make it maybe something as a part of a communal activity, making it more popular? So, okay, let's just use an example. I want to practice breathing for 5 minutes every day. Okay. Well, you're going to have to choose a breathing protocol or technique or pranayama that's enjoyable for you to do. It needs to be fun. So if it absolutely feels awful for you to be doing Wim Hof, don't do that. Do something different. If it feels absolutely awful for you to be doing Breathe Light, don't do that. Do something different. So you've got to find the technique that you enjoy doing. It feels good in your body. Okay. How do we make it easier? All right, well, we can talk about your environment. We can set up the conditions in the environment. You can have an armchair in the corner of your living room that's like going to be your breathing chair. You put your little uh, essential oil diffuser there. You put a nice throw blanket, whatever it is, like make it an inviting space. Somewhere where you want to sit, somewhere where you want to lay down. That's not your bed. Somewhere you want to spend time in. That's easy to get to. You don't have to take out all the props. You don't have to make it a huge thing. It's there for you, right? Like if you don't want to eat junk food, don't buy it. Don't have it in your pantry. Don't have it in your fridge. It'll be a lot harder for you to run out to the supermarket to get a tub of ice cream than if it's just right in your freezer. So make it easy for you to do the habit, whether it's breathing, whether it's fitness, whatever it is. Like remove the friction. Get somebody to do it with you. There's so many people, myself included, who host free breathwork calls every week, free trials, YouTube classes. Like, so easy to do something with other people that can give you a sense of motivation that you're not alone doing it. There's an accountability aspect. That's why people get a workout buddy, because you're there doing the thing together. All right, feelings. Sometimes you just don't want to do the thing. Now, the nuanced practitioner will know, like, is this coming from a place of, okay, I need a rest day because if I don't, it's actually doing more detriment to my fitness than just overriding and pushing through a workout. So, there are times in which, like, yeah, don't work out. Don't do the hard breathwork practice. Don't do X, Y, or Z. Like, if you're on a family reunion and there's a cake and you're like, I'm on a diet, I don't want to eat cake. Like, eat the piece of cake with your family. You're not going to regret that. Don't buy a cake alone in your house the next week. Like, right? So how you feel about it, like part of it's circumstantial. Do you need to rest? Is the healthier choice not doing the thing? Or is there just another sense of resistance to getting over the hump? So especially for incorporating habits like breathwork, yoga, exercise, like we live in a society that is incredibly overstimulated. So I'll give you an example. It's been a practice of mine to not do anything else while I eat. Don't watch anything, don't read anything, don't listen to anything, just eat. Just interact with my meal, notice how it feels in my body. That's easier said than done, especially for people who live alone, like nobody to eat with. Sometimes, I don't want to do that because it's much easier to have that stimulus. Like we're conditioned to be stimulated, and simplifying things is really, we're not conditioned to be doing that. It is uncomfortable. But this brings me to my next point. It's okay to be in discomfort. We live in a society where comfort is normal. People become very accustomed to getting anything delivered to their door, everything on demand, anything you want to find out. You can Google, you can YouTube it. Like, there is really, for the Western world, it is so easy to be comfortable. And so most people are not practicing discomfort on the daily. I'm not saying, go make yourself purposely feel miserable just to know that you can. I'm saying feeling that resistance, feeling that discomfort, that's okay. That's part of it. And something that is inevitable when you're changing a habit, when you're starting a habit. Again, it's the point of getting into the body and being present. Our minds are creating the story. Our bodies are just living the life. So, again, it's a lot easier for an emotion to control a thought. Oh, I feel like this. Okay, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. Then a thought to control an emotion, Tighter, go work out, Tighter, go do your breathwork practice. So then it comes back to, can the environment be set up? Can things be fun, easier, popular so that the thought isn't always being controlled by the emotion, but there's this stimulus, there's this, not stimulus, but there's this environment, there's cues around you that make it easier for the thought to be, okay, I'm just going to do it. So, like, part of it is developing grit and discipline, tapas, and that's a skill and a habit in itself. Um, every popular app has like a streak tracker, a habit tracker. So, things like that can really motivate people and work for people. Um, this is such a loaded topic because everybody's going to function differently. Like, just in my family, I can think of two people in particular who are so fundamentally opposite personalities, and the way one of them needs to incorporate habits is so different than the other one. Like, one person is so type A, so disciplined. Oh, they need to do that. They just do it. It's like not even there's not even a conversation. Like, okay, I'm just going to do it. The other person, much more easily leaning into emotions, easy to talk themselves out of it. So for people like that, okay, let's start stacking the habits. What's something you do every day anyway? How do you add the habit on top of that? Okay, you have to drive your car to a certain place every day. Park far away. Get that extra 200 steps in. Oh, you have to fold laundry every day, or you have to do this every day. Okay, do some small breath holds as you're folding laundry. Do your breath practice then. Like, it doesn't have to be a precious thing on a shelf set aside that if you don't do it, it's like it's broken and it's imperfect. Stack the habit. Do it while you're doing something else, not to distract, but to add to it. So it's not watch TV and eat food. It's take 5 slow breaths before you do your meal. Check in halfway. Take another 5 breaths. Do it. Take 100 steps after you finish your meal, right? So for some people, it's going to be about stacking, incorporating. For other people, they're going to be a lot, the friction is just not there because it's just how their mind works. But I'll go back again. Any way that something can be fun, easy, or popular is going to help.
Very cool. Thank you for that. I
That's
think
my 2 cents.
you're giving us gold here. You're giving us gold, Tiger. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to cover today?
Yeah, I would just like to say to people, like,